edge of a rain-battered village stood a farmhouse so crooked it seemed to lean on the wind for support. In it lived 12-year-old Elias, his parents, and his little sister Annalie. Beyond their potato field stretched the Blackwood, a forest so ancient the soil smelled older than stone. Villagers kept a respectful mile from those trees. Old men at the tavern swore the trunks shifted when no eyes watched. Children dared each other to touch the first moss-coated root and run back before dusk. Everyone repeated the same warning: the forest keeps what it takes. Still, Elias felt the forest notice him. Sometimes when he lingered at the back fence, the wind would still, leaving only the slow hiss of leaves, like a distant inhale. Late one August evening, while fetching firewood, Elias froze. Far past the hedge, a greenish light pulsed between the black trunks, too constant to be fireflies, too deliberate to be a lantern. It beat like a heart. He told his parents. His father clenched his jaw. His mother went pale. "Never after dark," she whispered. "The Blackwood keeps what enters." But that night Elias dreamed of the light. In the dream, it spelled his name in flickers, each flash a cold fingertip across his skin. The next day, he confided in his friend Matthias, a shepherd's son. "Let's go see," Matthias urged, "just to the first clearing." They waited for twilight and crept through the hedge. The forest greeted them with a damp metallic smell, as though it had rained iron. The green glow blinked deeper inside. When they turned to check the path, the hedgerow had dissolved into darkness. Then a bell chimed, 3 hollow notes from nowhere. Matthias's eyes widened. "Did you?" The bell rang again, now behind them. A low whisper followed. 2 came. 1 may stay." Matthias bolted, dragging Elias back the way they'd come. Somehow the hedge reappeared. They burst into moonlight, gasping, and never spoke of it again. But the voice stayed with Elias, curling behind every sound. 1 may stay. Curiosity became a fever. 2 nights later, Elias slipped from his bed. The sky was bruised purple. Crickets were silent. Crossing the hedge, he felt the air drop 10 degrees. The village behind him vanished as though the forest had swallowed the world. Deeper in, the green light flared, leading him past trees that leaned like watching giants. The moss underfoot rose and fell, breathing with him. Minutes stretched into hours. The lantern hissed, though its flame burned steady. Steps echoed behind him, perfectly timed with his own. "Elias," a voice called. First his mother, then his sister's giggle, then a slow, wet drawl of his name that wasn't human. "Elias." He turned. Nothing. When he faced forward again, the path had changed direction, leading toward a pale fog that smelled of salt and decay. Through the mist stood a house shaped like his own, but slouched and rotted. A dim lantern glowed in the window. Inside, everything was inverted, chairs nailed to the ceiling, dishes trembling on shelves, a clock ticking backwards. On the table lay a second lantern, his lantern already warm. A whisper slid from the walls. "Home is a circle. Step inside and stay." Behind him, the door slammed. Roots erupted through the floor, coiling around his ankles, not pulling, only counting. The room brightened into a shimmering doorway of green fire. From it stepped another Elias, gray-skinned, eyes milk white, lantern dark. The double raised a finger, "Shh," then smiled too wide. "You've always been here. it said in Elias's own voice. "You left the village long ago. Come remember." The boy lunged for the door. The forest groaned like a giant waking. The double followed, its steps overlapping his own. Branches bent to block the path. Bells clanged in frantic patterns. 1, 2, 13. A procession of shadowed villagers emerged between the trees, faces familiar yet wrong, neighbors who had vanished over decades. Their mouths moved in silent chants. Each carried a lantern with no flame, yet the darkness around them glowed. They closed in, forming a ring. From every throat came a single breathless word: "Stay." Elias ran until his lungs burned. The forest shifted with each step. Roots became water, water became stone. At last, a thin line of moonlight appeared, the village edge. He dove through and landed in his own bed. Morning sunlight spilled across the room. For a heartbeat, he thought it had been a nightmare. Then he saw it, his lantern on the windowsill, still warm, though he had left it in the woods. The villagers found no footprints in the blackwood, only a ring of blackened moss where he claimed to exit. They called it a childish fancy, until weeks later Matthias disappeared, last seen walking toward the hedge at dusk. Now, on windless nights, the blackwood exhales a mist that smells faintly of wet iron. Those who linger swear they hear two voices, one a boy's, one a perfect echo, calling from the depths, I went home, come remember." Sometimes it sounds like a warning, sometimes like an invitation. Under a slate-gray dawn, the crooked stone cottage sagged against the valley wind, and old Jacob latched his door with a squeal of rust. The ash pines waited beyond his garden, their tall trunks the color of old bones. Villagers said the forest keeps what it takes, whispering about hunters who never returned and bells that rang where no church stood. But Jacob, who had foraged those woods since boyhood, trusted his knife, his compass, and the chalk in his pocket more than their stories. Mist hugged the ground as he crossed the fence and pressed the first white X onto a pine. The air smelled of wet iron. He bent to cut a patch of chanterelles when a child's voice slid through the needles, soft and startling. "Grandfather, this way." Jakob stiffened. No one. A heartbeat later, the whisper floated again, farther off, perfectly clear. "Help me." He turned in slow circles, the forest too quiet, even the birds silent. Tiny barefoot prints, damp and faintly glowing as if dusted with moonlight, glimmered between the trunks. Against his better judgment, he followed, chalking trees every 10 paces. When he looked back, each mark was gone. Only smooth gray bark stared back. A bell rang once, low and hollow. Then again, then a third time directly above him. The sound vibrated through his ribs like a warning. Still he pressed forward. The prints led to a hollow carpeted in black ash, though the air carried no scent of fire. At the center sat a porcelain doll, dressed dark with dew, eyes of polished jet. Its cracked lips moved. "Stay with me," it breathed. The ground under his boots pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Fog thickened until the world narrowed to a single circle of ash. Through that fog, a house emerged, his own cottage, but warped, as if melted and refrozen. Stones bulged, windows leaned inward, and the door gaped wide. He stepped inside, and the pull of gravity wavered. Chairs clung to the ceiling. His kitchen clock ticked backward with a sharp, metallic click. From the hallway came a shape, a second Jakob, younger and pale, eyes milky white, smile stretched too far. "You've already stayed," the double said in his own voice. Roots slid from the floorboards and wrapped his boots, cool and deliberate, as if counting each toe. Beside his ear, the whisper returned, now almost gentle. "Don't leave me." Jakob tore free and bolted through a hallway that melted back into forest. Trees rearranged themselves with every stride. The forest floor shifted, moss to slick water to rattling stone. Bells clanged in frantic sequences. 1, 2, 13. From the mist figures emerged, villagers long missing, faces gray and still, each holding a lantern with no flame. Their mouths moved in silent chant as they formed a ring around him. He crashed through, lungs burning. A strip of moonlight appeared ahead, and he hurled himself toward it, but the ground stretched and folded, each step longer than the last. Voices followed, layered and echoing. His mother, his sister, the child, all whispering his name. Branches clawed his coat, yet the trees seemed to lean aside at the final moment, as if ushering him onward. At last, he broke through into the valley's cold morning. Sunlight struck his eyes like a blow. His watch showed only minutes gone, though the sun stood high. He stumbled home, heart hammering. On his kitchen table lay the porcelain doll, damp with forest dew, its black eyes fixed on the door. The villagers searched the ash pines for days. They found his basket at the forest edge, mushrooms still fresh, but no footprints beyond. Jakob said little, but each night the mist crept closer to his cottage. On windless evenings, a silver fog seeps from the trees and curls beneath his shutters, carrying a voice that threads through every room. "Grandfather, one more story." Sometimes it pleads, sometimes it promises, sometimes it commands, and sometimes, when Jakob closes his eyes, it sounds exactly like a child breathing beside his bed, waiting for him to answer.